about Freemasonry. Any thoughts you have, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. I've been posting a bunch of stuff on socials. I hope you guys saw it. And let me know how it's going. Oops. And if I could actually learn how to spell, that'd be nice. Try this one more time. All right, there we go. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, let me know. I'll be back on at 1 a.m. Sorry, 1 a.m. is 1 a.m. stream. I'll be back on tomorrow, technically today, February 26th, at 10 a.m. And then again at 1 p.m. I've got 200 push-ups to do today, so we'll see how I do. I hope you guys will do some of them along with me, but just do whatever you can. That's the key. Don't do anything that's going to cause you difficulty or, injury, anything like that. Let's see who joins. Take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. Let me know any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. And don't forget, March 28th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., we've got a community services fair happening at the Windsor Masonic Temple Ballroom, being put on by Square and Compass Promotions. I'm very much excited for that. Can't wait for it. It'll be happening soon. But first, we're going to wait to see who joins. And these 1 a.m. streams, I don't have any specific topics. I just hang out and chat about really any topics people have, any thoughts, any comments. Again, whatever your thoughts are on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. Thank you, everybody who's been helping out by commenting on my videos. Leaving comments, subscribing, likes, that stuff helps out big time, and it is much, much appreciated. But for now, let's wait to see who joins. I'm doing well, Canon USMC. How's it going with you? How is your night treating you? And thank you for joining. We're just waiting to see who joins. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear it. By the way, I was very happy with some of the things I posted. If you check out my video descriptions, thought I had some good info on there, especially about the State of the Union and its connections to Freemasonry. CBA saying the same thing you always say. Fair enough. It's still great to have you here. How's it going? Thank you for joining. Consider doing a super chat. If you're going to be here and telling me it's evil, you can at least give me 99 cents. For the time being, we're just going to wait to see who jumps on the chat to say hello. No specific topics for these 1 a.m. streams. Really, it's just me hanging out, talking about whatever. Doesn't even have to be about Freemasonry necessarily. There are other things I enjoy outside of that. Well, at least you don't troll me. That's appreciated because we're dealing with a whole bunch of trolls on this stream, especially the 1 a.m. channels. So just hanging out, Daniel, chatting about Freemasonry. So any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear it. And Daniel, how are you doing? Nobody wants to be the biggest troll. Think happy thoughts, not trollish thoughts. How about that? Think happy thoughts. There are too many trolls out there in the world as it is. Well, if you want to be the biggest troll in Masonic context, you would be a third degree troll. Because, as I'm always saying, the highest degree in Freemasonry is the third degree. Um, I'm doing well, Caesar. How are you doing? Unknown. Most people say I'm ugly, so the fact that you think I'm handsome, unknown, I'll take it as a compliment. First person, leave the biggest troll. Well, there's a lot of people who, at various points in time, get close to it, depending on who you are. So, doesn't mean you're higher than me as a third degree Mason or even 18th degree Mason. That's not how it works. Well, I appreciate that, Caesar, but I didn't ask for forgiveness. Keep that in mind. So, but I mean, you're still welcome to forgive me if you so choose. Um, there's this old expression, right? Forgiving somebody is not about what they want; it's about you and your decisions. So, if you want to forgive me, then by all means. Um, so, just because you're again 33rd, if you think that's the highest degree in Freemasonry, then you're misunderstanding Freemasonry. The highest degree in Freemasonry is the third degree. Everything else is an appended body or a rite, which, by the way, they are valuable. They are important parts of the craft, but a 33rd degree is not 11th degree higher than, for example, um, uh, third degree. Sorry, Caesar. Well, I mean, I guess I just apologized there, so you kind of got me. But I'm not going to apologize for yesterday, which again, you can forgive or not forgive. That's completely up to you. But I'm not going to be apologizing to you. Um, so, I mean, I guess you can take that for whatever it's worth. But by the way, Caesar, again, there's nothing saying you have to be on this stream. If you think I'm being rude or disrespectful, or you don't like the way I conduct the stream, then the beautiful thing about YouTube is there are literally probably thousands of live streams. I would even wonder if it might be tens of thousands of live streams happening at the same time. So you can always find something else. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least a few talking about Freemasonry. Um, it has to do with Morocco. First, or CBA, excuse me. It has to do with Morocco and particularly a type of berry in Morocco. I forget what it's called. I'm looking up the name of it. That dyes hats red. I don't know if I can find the type of berry. I'm going to see if I can find the name of it now, because that's how they dyed it red. Um, right. A source of a crimson berry once used to dye the felt. But I don't know what the name of that berry is now. I used to know it. I mean, I don't think that's the case, the way it's experienced. It's one of those situations where there's a lot of challenges and negativity in the world right now. I'm not going to pretend like there's not, but there's also a lot of positives. It just depends what you're looking for and what you're looking at more than anything else. Um, Daniel, you're gonna get used to people being foolish in streams, but I'm more likely to call people out for being stupid or idiots in streams if I think they are being that way. Um, yes, and everybody should move on if they so choose. Again, it's nothing. The Fez has nothing to do with blood, to my knowledge. It has to do with, once again, a red berry out of Morocco. Because Fez is the name of a town in Morocco or a city in Morocco, and there's a type of berry there that would dye felt um, red. Polster AOC 2028. Maybe. This isn't a political stream. There are some Freemasons who support AOC, I'm sure. There are many who do not, I'm sure as well. I can say it probably works out 50-50, as do most things politically. But I do not know. I mean, I have no issues with AOC. We'll see. It's still 2026. It's still early, so I don't think we know for sure who's going to be running and who's going to be nominated. Um, well, I don't know what magazine you read that in, but I've never seen any evidence of a connection between Princess Diana's death and Freemasonry. So your magazine is full of baloney. Well, thank you, Mr. Courtney. That's very kind of you. I appreciate the super chat very much. I don't know what that means of Purple Rain. When I hear that, I think of Prince, which, by the way, is a really incredible musician and one of my favorite songs. Sounds vaguely homophobic. 1917. Oh, everybody, by the way, is doing well. Once again, jump in the chat, say hello. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. Positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear it. And I'll be back on at 10 a.m. to do 200 push-ups. So you can all watch me sweat and get very, very tired as I do 200 push-ups. My favorite type of music would probably be like rock and roll and southern rock. My favorite song of all time is Simple Man by Leonard Skinner. My second favorite is Prodigal by Blacktop Mojo. But as a general rule, my argument is always going to be I love almost all types of music. Music is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. Elton John. Elton John for sure. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I6H. First person, I'm not a fan of conspiracy theories. If you know something, you know it. Otherwise, you're just casting dispersions on people, which I don't like, who can't defend themselves. To me, the most likely explanation is what, it is understood to be, which is it was paparazzi trying to get a picture. And the consequences being the accident. I don't think he was, but I don't know for sure. He could have been. I mean, Masons do bad things. Being a Mason doesn't mean you're perfect, or it doesn't mean that there aren't bad people within the organization. Just like there aren't, bad plumbers and bad football players and bad lawyers and bad janitors and anything in between. But the ethics of the organization trend to the good, and that's what matters. According to what I'm seeing, he wasn't. I've never heard any information that he was. So, indications are that he wasn't. At least I'm not reading anything that he was. Now, I don't know for sure. Never seen any evidence that he was, or is, or was, or whatever. I guess there's a cut over his eye caused by a Masonic ring. There's Paul Bentley's 32nd degree Masonic ring. This is from time.com. On November 22nd, 1963, Dallas police detective Paul Bentley hit Lee Harvey Oswald in the face while arresting him in Texas Theater in Dallas, barely more than half an hour after the president had been assassinated. Pictures of Oswald after his arrest show a cut over his eye caused by a Masonic ring Bentley was wearing that day. It's an interesting little side note. I'd never heard that before. I hope everybody's doing well. Thank you for being here. Hello, CEO of My Time. How's it going? Thank you for joining. I hope your day is going well. I hope you're having a good day. Now we're getting to the whole lone gunman stuff. I am not an expert on JFK, but again, I'm not a fan of conspiracy theories. So I'm just going to stick to the standard story until I hear different. There was not. Caesar, you're getting a bit much with the conspiracy theories. I find it tiresome. Um, would it make a difference if I was or wasn't NON? Being a Freemason, it does not discriminate against it does not discriminate against people whether they're gay or straight, and nor should it. Well, I don't know who Ted Gunderson is, but I'm not one who is interested in conspiracy theories, whether it be about JFK or Freemasons or anything in between. I think that stuff is pretty toxic. Well, I think Oliver Stone, famously, Oliver Stone doesn't like Freemasons, which is on a side note, but he put in, let me see if I can find it again. Um, there's a movie that Oliver Stone directed, and I can't remember what it was called, where one of the characters, a bad guy, wears a Masonic ring, but I can't see it here. That's not that important. Well, foreign, join Freemasonry, and then maybe you'll find out, even if there is a handshake or not. I know who William Morgan was. He wrote a book, exposing the secrets of Freemasonry. The theory is a bunch of Masons killed him, which might have happened. We don't actually know what happened to him. His body was never discovered or recovered. He was in a debtor's jail. He either escaped or was broken out, and was never heard from again. The story goes that a bunch of Masons took in the middle of, I think it was a river in New York or a lake in New York, and drowned him. But he had a lot of debts as well, so it could have been the people who owed him money, or he could have just escaped to Canada. Um, we don't know for sure that there was a secret handshake. You got to join Freemasonry to find out. Well, he was definitely wrong about that. At least I've been a Freemason for 20 years. I've known a couple politicians who were Freemasons, both of them at the municipal level. So you can take that for whatever it's worth. Well, he was memorizing things for Kate. So he was memorizing things. In Freemasonry, we have rituals and degrees or ceremonies. It is one of those situations where you're expected to memorize the work. So memory work is just practicing your work. I've told this story before, but when I was growing up, my dad was the worshipful master of his lodge, and he would always wake up at like 6 in the morning to go to work for 7. But before he would go to work, he would sit at the kitchen table and memorize his work before the degrees. And so I'd be sleeping in my bedroom or lying in my bed, and I'd hear him at the kitchen table getting ready for a degree night, practicing his Masonic ritual. Now, at the time, I just thought my dad's a crazy person talking to himself. But later on, I learned what he was doing when I had to start doing the same thing. So, well, I don't think you're writing an expose on Freemasonry. I think you're speaking a lot of nonsense. At least that's what I'm guessing, because it seems like all of the questions you're asking me are a bunch of conspiracy stuff that tells me you're spending way too much time online and way too much time not knowing what's actually going on. Jeffrey Epstein was not a Freemason. So CEO of my time, you're wrong about that as well. Jeffrey Epstein was not a Freemason. At least there is zero evidence that he was. So he was not. Well, I mean, it's rare that a Masonic building will have no windows. There might, it was very common to not have windows in the lodge room because you're performing Masonic ritual and ceremony. And you don't want people trying to sneak in and see. You want them to join the legitimate way and get the secrets a legitimate way. But the idea of no windows, I mean, that's weird. It's probably against fire code as well. Like, for example, like my Masonic building is famous for the number of windows it has on the facade. It has like, I don't remember, like over 100 windows. Well, you can be wrong and also be from a long line of Freemasons. Both of those things can be true. Just because you're from a long line doesn't mean you got the information accurate. But it'd be strange to me to have a Masonic building with no windows at all. That seems odd to me, even like from a building code. We do not venerate serpents. Freemasons are not a religion. We do not venerate serpents, nor do we venerate anything, right? Veneration is a religious idea. That's not what Freemasons do. So, no. One of the reasons why Freemasonry is not a cult is just this point I've always been bringing up. Freemasonry, as I noted before, right, Freemasonry does not venerate things, idols or serpents or anything in between. Well, good for you. That doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. And based on a lot of the things you've said, CBA, you don't seem to know what you're talking about. And again, to the extent to which you agree with it or disagree with it, I mean, so be it. I could very well be wrong. You could be wrong. I would say your constant references to growing up with it seems... Just because you grew up around something doesn't mean you know anything about it. My dad was an engineer. I grew up around engineers. I couldn't, turn a hammer, put a hammer to a nail. I mean, I don't know if reincarnation is real or not. I don't believe in it myself, but there are many religious faiths that do. It's just not something I believe in. Hello from Wyoming once again. I don't want to be frozen. I don't want to be re-alived. I just want to live my life trying to help people around me, trying to make the world a better place, trying to make my community a better place. And then I want to go on to whatever's next. And I don't think anybody knows for sure. Well, it probably had to do with a degree, foreign Kate. So not every jurisdiction, by the way, has dress codes. So there are some jurisdictions where they'll go into a Masonic lodge. They'll go into a Masonic lodge and it's got, like they're coming in with overalls, and if they're farmers, a pig shit on their shoes. But in some jurisdictions, there's an expectation that for a regular business meeting, you show up in a suit and tie. And if it's a degree, meaning you have a new brother joining the lodge or advancing, it is a tuxedo. Also, if you reach a certain level and a certain rank, you're expected to wear a tuxedo to lodge. Again, it depends on the jurisdiction and whether they have a dress code or not. Bilbo, to be one, ask one. You need to find a Masonic lodge in your area, approach them, and express your interest in joining. By the way, everybody here, please take a moment, if you're new, to hit the like and subscribe button. Consider doing a super chat. I'm here to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession by creating content. Well, I mean, it's like dress regalia, right? Dress suit. You can call it that if you want. It's one of those things where it's like a fancier type of suit. In the same way, back in Star Trek days, when I would watch Star Trek, they would have their regular uniforms and their dress uniforms for special occasions. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Why do I have to be super gay? Why can't I be super straight? Or just regular gay or just regular straight? Freemasonry does not discriminate whether you are gay or straight. I don't know what that means. Freemasonry, we don't have weddings. We're not a religious organization. We can't marry people. Good. Happy birthday, Thomas. I just, got too busy, and I like to focus on scary movies now. Well, Foreign, I'm very sorry that your father was a drunk, abusive, controlling man. I don't know if you say was, so I don't know if he's still around and still alive, but obviously if you know of anybody or yourself experiencing abuse, you should contact the police, contact 911 for your safety. And there are resources to help people deal with the trauma of abuse. Having said that, I'm sure it's incredibly difficult. What's your favorite scary movie, Eric Bobby? Congratulations on 80. That's awesome. Well, I mean, it depends. I would need to know a little bit more about the details, right? I mean, so obviously, if I, because it's not the lodge, it's the members, right? If I were to find out, like, let's say I were to find out that abuse is happening right now, like I find out that a brother is in the midst of physically harming somebody or physically abusing somebody in other ways, obviously I'm going to call 911, and every Mason should call 911 immediately to put a stop to that. Um, if it's a situation where um, you know what's going on, but for whatever reason, like maybe the victims don't want to press charges, which can happen, or who knows what it is, then hopefully he would be suspended from Freemasonry and encouraged to get counseling and seek help to deal with his abusive actions. And then he can return to lodge once he's sorted himself out and can act in a manner that is honorable to those around him and to the lodge itself. There are no deeper workings, Caesar. See, this is why I think you're a troll at this point. Because it's clear it doesn't matter what I say. You're convinced that there's inner workings and you're going to keep prodding. My assumption is you keep prodding because you want me to slip up and you can eventually use that to confirm your inner beliefs. There are no inner workings of Freemasonry. There are no evil workings of Freemasonry. There are no um, negative or there are good masons and bad masons, there are good plumbers and bad plumbers, but the ethics of Freemasonry are positive and good. There is no inner sanctum, inner group, higher power, any of that nonsense. um yeah, as in, I think Caesar's plan is he'll keep saying stuff like, did the Masons do this? Did the Masons do that? And if at some point I'm not paying attention and I say, yes, the Masons did X or Y, what I meant to say no, or was answering a different question, or wasn't paying attention to anything, then Caesar's like, got me. Because at this point, I've said many times, Freemasons are meant to, ethically speaking, obey the laws of the country in which they live. That means they're meant to follow the rules of the country in which they live or in which they're traveling to for work, to obey the laws, obey the police, obey the magistrates. So, by definition, Freemasons are not going to be involved in the JFK assassination. They're not going to be involved in 9/11. They're not going to be involved in any of that stuff that Caesar keeps asking about. And if he was paying attention, he would know what my answers would be. Um, right? And so at this point, I think it's just a matter of, can I get Cameron to slip up? Which, I make mistakes. I say the wrong thing. So he might very well get to that point where I do slip up. But my suspicion is that's what it's going to be. However, I'll give it a blanket statement again. We as Freemasons, and this is since the Anderson constitutions, have been charged to obey the laws of the country in which we live or work or travel. So, by definition, to be a Freemason and to follow the ethics of Freemasonry, we could not be involved in criminal acts, whether it be Princess Diana's death, whether it be 9/11, whether it be JFK's assassination, or anything else that Caesar has been asking about. Um, Well, Freemasons answer to royalty in the same way non-Freemasons answer to royalty. If you live in a country in which the royalty is the supreme governing body, either which makes the laws or sets the laws or whatever it is, then you answer to royalty. If you live in America, you answer to the president and Congress. If you live in, I don't know, a republic, you answer to whatever the Republican governance is. You don't answer to royalty specifically, rather, you as a Freemason answer to the governing institutions of the country in which you live or in which you work. Um, Carrie is a great scary movie. My favorite scary movie is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 or Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5. Um, there's been a bunch of papal bulls. The one I'm familiar with is Humanum Genus from I think it was 1888. I might be getting that date wrong, from Pope Leo the 13th. Um, I got a bunch of them. I got these here. Yeah, but True Detective had nothing to do with Freemasonry. And honestly, I cannot think of a television show I find more, or I am more, I don't know what the right word is, conflicted on than True Detective. Ultimately, I think it was a negative for society, even though um, it had a great final episode where I think his name was Rusty, Matthew McConaughey's character Rust Cole, talks about the stars and the light. It was a very, very nice ending. But the television show itself, I think it started to give a lot of bad men excuses to act even worse. Um, that famous scene where, so Woody Harrelson is cheating on his wife with someone who I think is much younger than him. He then goes on to stalk her and basically abuse her and um, somebody else that she's seeing. And the next day, he asks if his partner, if they worry they were bad men. Russ Cole says, "Yeah, we're bad men, but we keep the worst men away." And that's an awfully convenient way to excuse bad behavior by saying you're just being a bad person to keep other worse people out. I mean, if you don't have to cheat on your wife to fight evil. You don't have to stalk, your partner to fight evil. You don't have to abuse your power as a police officer to fight evil, despite what True Detective may imply. So that's always really bothered me about True Detective. Um, I know of him, uh, Parsa 5572. Who is that? 3572. By the way, please hit like, please hit subscribe. I mean, I don't think life is necessarily meaningless. I think we can create a pretty decent meaning. I mean, what is it about life that is meaningless to you? I've seen a lot of evidence that there's some type of meaning. If nothing else, my desire to be alive represents a type of meaning, right? And even if I don't desire to be alive, the fact that my body continues to desire life to the point that it will try to repair me if it is harmed, whether I cause the harm or somebody else, that strikes me as a clue that there's meaning in life. At least that'd be my uh, understanding. Well, that's true, Mr. Keeps. Welcome, Mr. Keeps. I sent you an email, by the way. But um, the problem is, at least in my experience, and I saw this firsthand, I saw a lot of guys start to, basically become assholes, but what they started to do is they started to justify it by saying, well, there are worse people out there. Or I'm actually, yes, I'm a bad person, but there are worse people out there and I'm fighting those people. As opposed to, you can be a good person and fight against evil. And I think that True Detective, it set up this idea that somehow you can justify bad behaviors so long as there's a worse entity out there that you can point to, which I never liked. Right? It's the same way that these guys are police officers. They're supposed to act in a certain way. And how many different types of crimes do they commit? In that first season, I saw a lot of guys, at least not in Freemasonry so much, but outside of Freemasonry, in other areas of my life, um, it developed this weird argument of like, yes, I do bad things, but I have to do bad things because whatever, there's worse people out there or something. I just really feel like that caused a lot of harm to society. Um, I think one of the things from a Masonic ethics point of view, again, Freemasonry has ethics, not morals, but ethical standards. Well, I guess you could argue it as morals as well. But I think we need to recognize morals, ethics are within an organization, right? If you're a police officer, you have codes of ethics you're expected to follow. Freemasonry has ethics as well, and I think those ethics apply to morals in a broader sense, and you can apply those morals to the world at large. But back to my point, one of the things we learn within Freemasonry from an ethical standpoint is the way we act towards one is the way we act towards all. We don't get to justify bad behavior um, because because we find some type of excuse. Um, we have to remember that the way we act towards others reflects upon Freemasonry, reflects upon ourselves, is seen by the all-seeing eye. So whatever we're going through in life, whatever challenges we're facing, whatever demons we're fighting, whether they be literal demons or figurative demons, we have a responsibility to act in an ethical, upright, and moral manner. We don't always succeed. I've failed a million times, and I'm sure I'll fail a million more times. But when I fail, I have to take responsibility for that myself. I don't get to say, yes, I'm a bad guy, but it's okay because there's worse guys out there, as they seem to do in True Detective. At least that's my humble opinion on that. Um, Hello, Citizen Z33. Freemasonry is not satanic. Jeremy, shoot, answer your question away. The Freemasons have no one enslaved. By the way, Z, I feel like it's been a while since I've seen you. Welcome back. Um, I was trying to figure out what the black cube is to which you're referring. I think what you're referring to is actually the black balls, which is how we vote. When you talk about, getting blackballed, that's from a Masonic term. Well, iron, whether you agree that there's good or evil, I think there's definitely ethical and moral ways to act. Now, if you don't want to use the term good and evil, that's fine. I think they're good enough terms to use that approximate something true, which is there are ethical ways to exist in the world, there are moral ways to exist in the world. To me, calling them good is a sensible way to approach it. But if you want to use a different term, that's okay. Um, Iron, well, I've been a Freemason for 20 years, so hopefully you don't think I'm horrible. Citizen, um, um, just been working a lot. Well, it's great to have you back. I have never been to the Bohemian Grove. I'm not cool enough to get an invitation, I'm sure. Don't they just like burn an owl or something? Which in that case, who cares? I don't know. But Freemasons have nothing to do with the Bohemian Grove. It's a whole different organization, a whole different group. Bohemian Grove is not Masonic. Well, Mr. Keeps, what I would say is if it's like I love scary movies, right? My favorite is Nightmare on Elm Street, part 4 and 5. No one everybody watching that understands that Freddy Krueger is the bad guy. Now, because he's this single like character that appears in each film, he develops an anti-hero status. But within the movie itself, no one is making excuses for his behavior, saying, oh, he's, not such a bad guy. And the people who push against him are the good guys who fight against him. I actually wrote a whole story about that, which is why I love it. If in True Detective, when Woody Harrelson had said, do you worry we're bad guys? If Matthew McConaughey had said, we are flawed, we are bad guys, but we're going to try to do better every day. It's okay to mess up, but we're going to try to do better. That would be okay, and that would be a comfortable message for me. Not that it's wrong to, well, I mean, I guess you shouldn't cheat on your wife, you shouldn't abuse your power, etc., etc. If you do, what you should do is look in the mirror, recognize you messed up, not make excuses, and just say, I'm going to try to be better. If that's what Matthew McConaughey had said, then I would be much more comfortable with that television show. But instead saying, we are bad guys, but there are worse guys out there, I think that's the wrong message. I think what should have been is every day try to be better. Every day while you're fighting the demons, literal, metaphorical, pick your term, you also fight your inner demons at the same time and try to be better. You're not always going to win either. Like I've fallen short of the person I want to be many times. I have no doubt I will fall short of the person I want to be many more times. But the fact that I'm falling short of the person I want to be and trying to be better has nothing to do with the challenges in the world I'm trying to overcome. It's my own decisions that I need to push against. So again, I've seen a lot of people It's kind of like the dirty cop who says, "I have to be dirty because of the criminals I'm up against." It's like, no, you don't. You can deal with criminals while still being upright, or at least as upright as you can be, or trying to improve. Another good example of it, the difference would be Training Day. Right, Denzel Washington justifies a lot of his bad behaviors and his corruption by claiming it's what he has to do to get the job done. And at a certain point, you realize, no, that's bull. That's not what you have to do to get the job done. Right. And again, I'm not saying I am, if they ever made a movie about me, there'd be a lot of parts in that movie where I might be embarrassed if they shown. I might be ashamed if they shown. I'll also a lot of things I'd be incredibly proud of. But I do try every day to get better. And I do try every day to be better. And when I mess up, as much as possible, I try not to use outside whatever it is as a justification for it. And I think I am getting better every day. At least I do my best, right? It's this idea of the rough to perfect ashlar, one of my favorite Masonic symbols. I will always be a rough ashlar. I will always be imperfect, but I will try to work on myself and get better. And I am proud of that, since who knows when, since the last 20 years of being a Mason, the progress I've made and the ways I've tried to not just make myself better, but try to make the world around me better as well. I mean, I suppose I like talking to people. I enjoy it, especially when I have a lot of people on the stream. It can be, I guess, a therapeutic quality. Sure, I would. I mean, it's one type of therapeutic action. It's one of many. I mean, watching my favorite movies can be therapeutic. Going to a Masonic meeting can be therapeutic. I try to recycle my bottles, but you're right. I could be better. It's another example of the ways I could be better, right? Yes, Bullsack. Batman is a Freemason. Superman's a Freemason. Captain America and Bucky are both Freemasons. I've never heard of the Egg of Life, so I can't say. Um, B-Man, please hit like and subscribe. I do not strategy. I think Masonic rituals are a way to create bonds of brotherhood through shared experiences. I've talked about this before, but there's two ways to develop bonds between people: shared experiences or shared knowledge. In the same way, a family recipe bonds a family together through knowledge of the recipe, Masonic rituals bond people together through shared experiences and shared knowledge. Um, I mean, I'm 666 and 333. I mean, I've heard of 666, obviously. 333 is just half of that. I've never heard, I mean, I can recognize those words, Mr. Keeps, cyberpunk, counterculture, and Discordianism. But I mean, to my knowledge, cyberpunk is a type of aesthetic, a type of, how people dress. Counterculture, that always makes me think of like Los Angeles, like Bukowski, the poets and the artists that were hanging out in Los Angeles and stuff in the 20s and 30s. Discordianism, I'm not sure. I mean, I know what Discord is. Freemasons, I've talked about this. You can see my previous channel where I talk about, or previous episode where I talk about when and how Freemasonry is mentioned in the Epstein files. Um, well, I got to finish right now because I have it with me and I'm very thirsty. We're going to be ending this stream in about 15 minutes. I'll be back on tomorrow at 10, or today technically, at 10 a.m. and then 1 p.m. Well, I guess 333 is half of 666, so I guess people can decide it means whatever they so choose. Um, I'm not one who assigns like mystic to um, like, where was it? I'm not one who assigns like special meaning to numbers, be it 666 or 333. I think numbers have value in terms of their ability to demonstrate to us the world, and geometry in the world. So, for example, 357, the Pythagorean theorem, pi, prime numbers. I think those are incredibly important, but they're important because they demonstrate that there is an order to the world, and we as Freemasons should recognize that order. Um, Right. There are no Masons in the Epstein files, as Mr. Keep says. Freemasonry is mentioned in the Epstein files 11 times. I talked about the mentions of Freemasonry when it pops up. The word specifically is found 11 times in the Epstein files. Rotary is mentioned more. The Catholic Church is mentioned more. Again, not casting shade on those organizations either. It's rather when you have millions of documents and millions of exchanges, a lot of stuff gets mentioned. But Freemasonry was mentioned primarily in historical contexts with some email that was sent, I forget the date, regarding the history of chiropractic and osteopathy, and referencing specifically a Mason who passed away in 1913, if I recall correctly, was the father of chiropractic. Um, it depends on which order. First of all, it depends on how you define atheism, because the way supreme being is defined is so broad. Sorry, the way the supreme being is defined tends to be very broadly defined. And so oftentimes, like I think a lot of people consider myself a atheist, right? I believe my supreme being is the rational nature of the universe as expressed through geometry and as expressed through science. Which some might consider that to be atheism. I don't. Freemasonry doesn't because I got in. Um, the But the other option is if you would say, like, if you were not able to give any definition of any supreme being, there are some liberal orders, primarily out of France, that can will accept atheists, for example. Say Allah? Okay, Allah. There are many Muslim Freemasons. Um, So for them, their supreme being would be Allah, which again, I have no issue with Muslim Masons, or Jewish or Christian or Hindu or Sikh. The wonderful thing about Freemasonry is the tolerance it demonstrates for different religions and different faith groups. Again, whether their supreme being is Jesus, is Allah, is I guess Yahweh, I think is the term, is the creator or spirits is my version, which is a rational universe as expressed through geometry. The beautiful thing about Freemasonry is the extent to which it supports tolerance for different beliefs, political, religious, and anything in between. Um, Dinah, calm down. You need to relax a little bit. Um, Holy, a bunch of comments. There are many people who believe in Jesus Christ. Caesar, I don't know what you're talking about. Caesar, you're getting very close to getting a ban. What do you mean by my type? I mean, I'm not one who believes in necessarily any religion, be it Christian, Muslim, Jewish, other religions. I tend to be very wary of religions, but that's my own personal views because primarily because of the supernatural qualities to them. But I respect everybody's right to worship and believe whatever they so choose. And again, if you are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Sikh, Indigenous, Wiccan, Wiccan, or somebody like me who maybe is more spiritual, you are my brother if you're a Mason. And if you're not a Mason, you're still my friend and you're still part of my country, my world, the earth. And I respect you as, a son of humanity and one of my fellow humans. Yeah, that does happen, Mr. Keeps. You're not wrong about that. That does happen. Depends which jurisdictions you're in. Um, you do not have to be straight. You do not have to be white. You do not have to be Anglo-Saxon. and you're not to be a man. So no, Will, you're wrong on all of those things. Um, Nam, I don't know, but if you're concerned about insomnia, you should talk to a doctor. I mean, I would say a lot of Masons can be deistic. I would probably describe myself as a deist. I think that's a pretty close way to describe me. Um, but I don't think most. Again, I would say most. It really depends on where you're at, like what community you're in. If you're in a community which is majority Muslim, the majority of the lodge will likely be Muslim. Um, Mr. Keeps, you asked about squares, circles. I mean, the square, the circle, the point within the circle, triangles, all of those things come up in a variety of different like elements and rituals and ceremonies within Freemasonry. Usually square will symbolize like moral conduct. When we talk about square conduct, we're talking about moral or fair conduct or honest conduct. Either a square as in a 90-degree angle, like the tool square, like this square here, meant to represent kind of moral conduct. The circle, it does come up in different degrees, um, including the center, which is actually a common symbol outside of Freemasonry, the point within a circle. It was actually on the cover of the music producers Rick Rubin's um, um, autobiography. It can reference either the center of oneself, kind of a, for lack of a better term, a spiritual or sacred part within ourselves, sacred as defined based on probably your religious beliefs, but a sacred part within us, the center of ourselves, or a kind of a sacred part of the world. There's this idea of the center of the circle being a sacred space, and you can cultivate that as you choose. Circle can also sometimes represent the earth itself, or nature, might be a better way to put it. Um, Triangles, I mean, the 47th problem of the first book of Euclid, basically the Pythagorean theorem, is a very important symbol within Freemasonry. Again, I've got that here, right? If you can see that. It's kind of hard to tell, but that's the 47th problem of Euclid, and this is another square here as well. Squaring a circle, I mean, that's a geometric principle. That's not really Masonic per se. We do have the square within the circle, I suppose. That's more geometry, though. Well, I've got many tattoos, Dina. I'm not Muslim, so I will get tattoos if I so choose, I suppose. Again, if you don't want to get tattoos, you don't have to. Red Pill, please hit like and subscribe. Um, I am familiar with the Book of Revelation. I would use the term familiar incredibly broadly, because, or incredibly, like, I know the bullet points, right? I even know a little bit about like pre-trib and post-trib ideas from a documentary I saw with the Left Behind series, but my familiarity with Revelation is very limited. That's the way I'd put it. Um, well, don't be tattooing dogs because they can't consent to getting a tattoo unless it's one of those things where it's like an identification tattoo. Because I think I heard about some pet owners getting their like important information tattooed on their dogs. So if they run away and they, let's say, lose their collar or whatever it is, they still have information. Maybe that was a microchip I'm thinking of, actually. Um, you do not, Red Pill. I think you're going to get yourself banned in a second. What do you mean? What is my goal for Freemasonry? What is my goal for this channel? My goal for this channel is to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession by creating content and then, getting an income from that content. My goal for Freemasonry is to try to make the world a better place through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. or sorry, that's my goal for the world through Freemasonry. My goal for Freemasonry is to increase its relevance within the community. I do not, Dina. You do whatever you want to do. I just want to talk about why I love Freemasonry. You can, well, first, you can't convert to Freemasonry because Freemasonry is not a religion, but I'm not trying to recruit anybody. You join if you want, don't join if you don't want. It's completely up to you. I just want to talk about it because I want to talk about it. It's like if I went on and talked about my favorite movie. I'm not talking about my favorite movie because I want you to watch it. I'm talking about my favorite movie because I want to talk about it. That should be good enough. Um, there is no New World Order within Freemasonry. It's a very trippy book. I mean, well, I mean, the Four Horsemen and all. Yeah, to my understanding, it is very trippy. I mean, that seems to be, with the exception of, um, Jesus. That seems to be like the Chosen and stuff. Revelation seems to be the part of the book that gets the most kind of adaptations, like the Left Behind series. Um, Probably because there's so much in it and it's so thematic, right? The end of the world is a pretty obvious, is obviously a very interesting theme. Um, well, if you want to learn more about Freemasonry, Rando, then Freemasonry for Dummies by Christopher Hodap is a great place to go. I recommend that book to everybody. Um, if you want to learn more about Freemasonry. Napoleon, I don't know what that means. But okay. Please hit like and subscribe, by the way. To everybody watching this, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm 3 subs away from 3,610. So let's see if we get it. We're going to be ending this stream in 3 minutes. I'll be back on tomorrow at 10 with 200 push-ups. And then on the stream, we're going to be talking about men's mental health stuff as well at 1 p.m. because tomorrow's push-up directly relates to men and mental health. So there you go. Dina, I don't know what that is or to what you're referring. Again, I'm not an expert on the Muslim faith or Islam by any means. Well, I'm not trying to monetize the lodge. I'm trying to monetize my Masonic experience. The lodge remains a non-monetized space. No one's getting paid to go to Masonic meetings. But if you're talking about how to monetize my experience with Freemasonry, some support it, some don't, which is perfectly fine. Not everybody has to support what I do. But at the end of the day, these are my experiences. And if I want to try to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession, thereby allowing me to spend more time on Freemasonry, then that is what I'm going to do. And in the process, talk more about it and grow its relevance within communities. Um, and, it's been growing. I got a lot of Masonic support on this channel. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for everybody who supports me, both Masonic and non-Masonic. So truly grateful for that. Open invitation to what, Dina? By the way, thank you, Dina, for being here. I greatly appreciate it. And everybody who's here. But we're going to be ending this stream very soon. Again, thank you all for being here. Please do not forget to hit like, hit subscribe. Also, join my Patreon. All that stuff helps out big time. What does hand? I do not. Oh, I think I know what you're referring to. However, I don't discuss Masonic rituals. So, Jeremy, you got to join Freemasonry to find out. But what I would say in general is it is the idea of putting a hand on one's back is not just Masonic, but it's the idea of support. It's meant to reference support and help and kind of brotherhood, like not letting people talk about people behind their backs, that type of thing. Might be a good general way to understand it. But if you want the specifics, you got to join a Masonic lodge. No, not just shoes. Freemasons do not worship Satan, neither at the top nor any other level. There are no levels in Freemasonry. The proper way to think of it is degrees and offices. No, they don't. Not just shoes. No, they don't. I am an 18th degree Scottish Rite, but I've been a Freemason for 20 years. I've been to Masonic events with 33rd degrees. I've read kind of the basis of where you're getting that from, which I think is Mackey. Sorry, not Mackey. I think you're getting that from Morals and Dogma and Albert Pike, but you don't understand what you're reading. No, it matters because within Freemasonry, this idea of levels, the implication is there's higher and lower levels. The highest degree within Freemasonry is the 3rd degree. That's also the highest level. Well, I'm 3rd degree Master Mason, which is the highest level within Freemasonry, or degree, if you will. I'm also Scottish Rite. I'm 18th degree Scottish Rite. But when people ask me the highest degree, I always say 3rd degree because that's what it is. And that's the relevant degree in terms of my Masonic career. I'm grateful to be an 18th degree Scottish Rite Mason, but unless I'm going to a Scottish Rite meeting specifically, if I'm going to any of my 5 Masonic lodges of which I'm a member, I'm going to say that I'm 3rd degree because that's what matters. That's what's relevant. Thank you, Jeremy. Well, the 33rd degree is an honorary degree. It's an honorific. It's invitational, and it's part of the Scottish Rite. However, it is not higher than a 3rd degree, nor is it higher than a York Rite Mason or a Shriner, or even for that matter, Eastern Star. If you're a 33rd degree Mason and you sit next to a 3rd degree Mason in Craft Lodge, you don't get extra votes, you don't get extra authority, you don't get extra deference. You are simply another brother within the lodge. Well, for the 33rd degree, you're invited by the other 33rds. I think it's a council, if I recall correctly, Supreme Council, if I recall. To join Freemasonry, there's no invitation. You have to take the first step. You have to join of your own free will and accord. And to go from, in Scottish Rite, let's say the 4th to the 32nd degree, you also have to do so of your own free will and accord. You don't get invited. And even when it's the 33rd, you are invited. You can choose to not join, right? It's not as though the invitation carries a force of law or anything like that. You can choose to join or not. Everybody, I'm sure, who's invited does because it's an honor. But it's an honor. It's not a level. It's not an authority. And it doesn't give you authority over, let's say, others in a craft lodge, or even for that matter, in a Scottish Rite lodge. If you're a 33rd degree Mason and you're part of an 18th degree Scottish Rite meeting, the most wise sovereign, even if it's an 18th degree, he has the authority within that lodge and within that chapter. Well, for the same reason a 3rd degree can't invite somebody into the York Rite, or for the same reason a 3rd degree can't invite somebody into the Eastern Star. They're separate appendant bodies, right? So the idea of like why is it, for example, that as a 3rd degree Mason, I can't join in a York Rite meeting, either Knights Templar or, why can't I sit in Eastern Star unless I'm invited? Why can't I, take part in Northern Masonic jurisdiction degrees or whatever it might be, right? These are appendant bodies. That's all it is. So the 3rd degree remains the highest degree for the Freemasonry. Beyond that, you have kind of lateral degrees, for lack of a better term. But there are no more privileges. And what are the privileges of a 33rd degree? Not just shoes, right? What privilege do you get as a 33rd degree other than the title? If you're a 33rd degree and you're sitting next to me in a craft lodge, what are the privileges and responsibilities that you have? Because I'll tell you this, you don't get an extra vote. You don't get to decide what happens within the lodge. You still have to submit, quote unquote, to the worshipful master and the wardens in the governance of the lodge. Um, you could be in Ontario, you could have an entered apprentice and a 33rd, and the entered apprentice has an equal level of voting rights and ability to speak in the lodge as a 33rd. Um, Nothing. A 33rd has no authority over a third. That's the point, right? That's what I'm trying to explain to you, not just shoes. A 33rd has no authority over a third degree. Um, Maybe if you wanted to argue, you could argue that because it's an 33rd is an honorific, there's a level of deference. But I mean, that's when in 2017, I received a Mason of the Year award. Maybe some people view that as like a level of deference because Mason of the Year, I was honored to get it, but it doesn't give me any more authority over a third degree, and nor does a 33rd. Plus, a 33rd degree within a craft lodge, it's not as though these are separate bodies within the umbrella of Freemasonry. Um, I am an 18th degree Scottish Rite, which does not give me more authority over a third degree Scottish Rite. And no 33rd has ever exercised any more authority over me than, say, the worshipful master of a lodge. We do not, Nam. We may consume alcohol after a meeting. It depends on the jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions allow it, some don't. Some lodges allow it, some don't. However, we as Masons need to make sure that if we are consuming alcohol at any point, we're doing so responsibly. Um, uh, I've been initiated. I've seen many people be initiated. And I've never seen anything evil, quote unquote evil in initiation. I've always said it a million times. I'll say it a million more. I've never seen anything within any Masonic initiation or any Masonic degree or any Masonic ceremony that is illegal, immoral, evil, unsafe, or against one's civic, religious, or moral responsibilities. Rocky, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's really weird. I don't know why God would want me to read the entire script of any movie. I don't know. I mean, Rand, I think you're talking about the Stonecutters episode, which, by the way, is a great episode of The Simpsons. It's called Homer the Great. It's really, really good. There is an honorary 33rd and a Supreme Council of the 33rd. Supreme Council does not have any authority over, let's say, a third degree in Craft Lodge, nor over, let's say, York Rite, nor over the Shrine, nor D Mole, nor Eastern Star. Well, thank you, Highlander. I appreciate the fact that you respect me. Just because you respect me doesn't mean I'm still not going to point out that you're wrong, for the record. All right, guys, we're going to end this stream. Dinah, I appreciate you being here, but keep in mind this stream is not about religion, nor trying to convert anybody to any religious beliefs, whether it be Allah or Jesus or anything else. People, much like good in Masonic Lodge, are free to worship as they understand and with, and to whomever or whatever religious understandings they may have, whether it be Allah or Jesus or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever it might be, or the creator. What do we mean by authority figure? People who send the invitation would be other 33rds, would be the council, would be Scottish Rite. But that's like asking, who sends the invitation to enter into my house? It would be me, right? That doesn't give me power over other people in my building or their homes. It's simply within my space. So 33rds have a level of authority in Scottish Rite. Well, even then, not really. They have one specific thing, which is other 33rds can be brought into it. That's not the same thing as, Again, what if you're the most wise sovereign in 18th degree Scottish Rite? You have, I would say, more authority than a 33rd degree. Um, well, no, you're just not understanding it, not just shoes, because you've looked up a bunch of nonsense within Freemasonry, or you looked up a bunch of nonsense on the internet. Within Freemasonry, there are various bodies, various groups, various organizations. Each one has within it different degrees and different offices. Each one comes with different responsibilities. There is no single one that could be considered higher than the others. So, for example, the worshipful master of a Masonic lodge could, for example, remove from the lodge a 33rd degree Mason and say, you need to leave, if he felt the 33rd degree was being disruptive. And the 33rd would have to leave because the worshipful master has the authority of the lodge. If I was a 33rd degree Mason and I went over to a York Rite meeting and I'm not a York or 33rd degree Scottish Rite member, I can't go into a York Rite meeting and sit down. It's a different body with different authorities and different hierarchies. You're working on this assumption that there's a single hierarchical structure where you have a level of authority over the rest of Freemasonry. That's not how it works. Um, and it just shows you don't understand it. Well, because the hierarchy is not the way you think. It's not a single hierarchy. It's different hierarchies within different appendant bodies and different craft lodges and different bodies, right? But it shows you don't understand it. You're convinced that there's one hierarchy, which there's not. In the same way, there's no single governing body globally. Um, See, there is no tippy top, not just shoes. That's the point. That's what you don't understand. And you don't understand it because you're not capable of understanding it. Um, but for example, there is a grandmaster in Ontario. The grandmaster in Ontario has authority within Ontario. He does not have authority outside of Ontario. There is no tippy top within Freemasonry. There are decentralized governing bodies, each of which have authority over a particular jurisdictional area. And even then, that does not apply to the entirety of it. So, for example, the Grand Master in Ontario of AF and AM Masonry does not have authority over Prince Hall Freemasonry within Ontario. They're different governing bodies. Um, I said there's hierarchies, not a hierarchy, right? You are under the impression there's a single hierarchy where there's a tippy top that controls Freemasonry, probably globally, as opposed to the truth, which is hierarchies, which does not have any singular centralized governing body. Um, no, that's not how it works. For example, the Grand Master of Ontario does not report to anybody above him, nor does the Grand Master of Manitoba. They are separate and equal, and they each set up the rules and the governance for Freemasonry within their jurisdiction, right? So that's the point that you don't get, not just shoes. And my suspicion is you don't get it because you're not a very smart person. And you don't understand the idea of federalism and decentralization. Um, well, they know each other in the same way the CEO of Microsoft and the CEO of Apple know each other, but that doesn't mean that they are a single governing body. They're separate organizations. They're separate hierarchies. They're just in the same field. Um, so yeah, but I just don't. I think not just you, you're not capable of understanding it. My suspicion is you, instead of focusing on your own life, you decide to create conspiracy theories around Freemasonry because it makes you feel better. Even though you're wrong, and you're probably focused on conspiracy theories as a way to not look in the mirror and deal with what I'm assuming is a very sad life. Um, well, you've wasted 14 years of your life because you have no idea what you're talking about. So, very sorry to let you know that, but you've wasted the last 14 years of your life. Um, yeah, it's not easy to be around the um, not just well, Epstein was arrested 14 years ago, if I recall correctly. In 2008 was his first arrest. Um, well, yeah, there's different chapters, there's different groups. Again, the ultimate, tell of how not just shoes is incorrect is where he said they all meet and talk and report to someone. That just shows that he's wasted the last 14 years and doesn't know what he's talking about. They can meet with each other, but they don't have anybody they report to above the individual Grand Lodges. That's the thing he doesn't understand. They don't report to each other nor to anything higher. They rather set the rules and responsibilities within their jurisdictions. It's democratic, so it changes, um, right? Yearly or every couple years. And you're not even taking into account the different types of Grand Lodges, Prince Hall versus AF and AM versus F and AM, the youth groups, the appendant bodies, all of whom have individual jurisdictions and know when they are quote unquote reporting to. It's no different than Microsoft and Apple. Both have CEOs. They don't report to somebody above them. Um, I say not just Shoes wasted the last 14 years of his life, but maybe in some ways he didn't. My suspicion, not just Shoes, is you probably lead a very bad life. And instead of looking yourself in the mirror, recognizing you're leading a bad life and trying to turn it around, you've used your research into Freemasonry as a way to ignore problems in your own life and instead create a conspiracy that you can try to solve. Because it's easier to try to fix the world than to try to fix yourself. And it's easier to create a pretend boogeyman against which you can fight or research than it is to actually try to deal with yourself and your own problems. So maybe the last 14 years have saved you from having to look in the mirror and recognize the sadness of your life. That is my suspicion. You can have all of those things. That doesn't mean you're not struggling with mental issues or other types of concerns. I mean, how many famous people have we seen who on the outside seem to have it all? Success, a good marriage, money, whatever it is, only to find out they've been struggling with all sorts of problems internally, whether it be mental health issues or substance abuse or who knows what it is, right? The the annals of the world are full of people who seem to have it all together, but were internally struggling. And then because of those struggles, ended up having a collapse of some sort. Um, CBA, he's talking about me. He's saying 18th is an 18th degree Scottish Rite. Um, well, I mean, you could have mental issues in terms of like actual mental health issues. I have no idea. You might not. I would say if you're concerned about that, go to the doctors. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be mental illness, quote unquote. It can just be leading a very sad, like mental anxieties, mental stresses, the anxieties, the stress, the anger issues, a million different things that aren't necessarily illnesses per se. Again, I've known people in my own life. I'm sure you've known them as well. I've known people who had a wife, who had a family, who had a decent job, were making good money, and then, but they still struggled with whatever it is they struggled with. And in some cases, they lost it all through those struggles. In some cases, they turned it around. But very often, they would get into conspiracy theories as a way to ignore whatever problems they had in their own life, in their own mind. Some of them had substance issues, some of them had stress, some of them had anxiety issues. And in some ways, when you're leading a good life, like you said, you were not just shoes. When you said, you've got the wife and the family, sometimes having those things can make it even harder to admit you're struggling because you feel like I can't admit to having problems and struggles. I have this wife and this family. So you struggle more often or not in silence, or you jump onto social media instead of going to sleep and decide you're going to focus on trying to solve, whatever problems exist in the world and actually looking at yourself in the mirror and dealing with however it is you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. Um, well, I don't know if Satan is the ruler of this earth or not. I think that's a Christian ideology. Again, I mean, I know a little bit about Christianity. I'm not a Christian per se, but I respect everybody's right to believe what they so choose. Um, I don't have all the answers of Freemasonry. Nobody does. Anybody who says they know everything is definitely full of baloney. You could literally spend every day the rest of your life learning about Freemasonry and not learn everything because you have the Allied Masonic degrees, you have clandestine bodies, you have the history of it. It's nuts. However, I do know my 20 years of Masonic experience. I do know about all the things I've seen and experienced to know enough to know when someone's full of baloney or not. And in this case, you are full of baloney. I think you genuinely believe what you're saying, not just shoes. I definitely think you believe what you're saying, but I have enough experience to know that what you're saying is bullshit, and you're just wrong. Um, well, in the same way, because I have reason and judgment and observational skills, right? So I've been a Freemason for almost 20 years. I've been to over 1,000 Masonic events. Um, I've been to them around the world, in the Philippines, in North America, South America, Bogota, Rio, I think 20 states, Scotland, England. Um, do I know everything? No. For example, there's a lot of stuff in the Allied Masonic degrees I don't know. But I can also use my observation and reason to recognize when something is bullshit, like saying Freemasons have a singular governing body to which they report. That's bullshit. And I know that because I'm smart enough to recognize that particular truth based on 20 years of experience within Freemasonry, right? So again, at the end of the day, it's kind of like asking me, do I know for sure there are no invisible leprechauns in my apartment, right? Of course, I don't know that. There could very well be an invisible leprechaun in my apartment who's just incredibly quiet and incredibly, clean. But at a certain point, I have to make a judgment. And the most logical thing based on all my observations is there is no invisible leprechaun in my apartment. In the same way, the most logical explanation of Freemasonry is there is no single governing body. It is decentralized. Um, well, you don't have evidence. You have stuff on YouTube and Twitter, which probably just, reinforces whatever previous ideas you had. And you're not smart enough to necessarily be able to judge it or understand what's happening. Um, and I've never seen any Masonic, what is the Lodge 146? Sorry, I've never seen any human sacrifices, mock or otherwise, within a Masonic context. You could very well just not be understanding what you're seeing or seeing clandestine baloney. Um, I've never been to Bohemian Grove. See, this is another way I know you don't know what you're talking about. Bohemian Grove has nothing to do with Freemasonry, right? You're just somebody who doesn't know what they're looking at, but thinks they're smarter than you are. It's the same way, you know, I don't know the first thing about how a car works. So the problem with that is if I'm looking up a video about engines and how cars operate, for all I know, the video could be completely full of baloney. I have no way to know. I'm not smart enough to know what's true, what's not true. I need to first get some basis of knowledge through an experienced mechanic before I can start to judge evidence online. To do that, I need to rely on my experience of whichever mechanic I go to and does my car run, and I go from there, right? No, the members of the Grove are not Masons. I mean, some may be, I wouldn't doubt it, but that term all, I'm pretty sure that's not the case. No, we do not worship Satan, Dinah. Freemason is not a religion. We do not worship Satan. We do not have any Masonic gods or devils. Freemasonry is a civic organization, or a civic institution. But Dinah, you need to calm down as well. You've heard me say dozens of times Freemasonry does not worship Satan. So you need to start paying attention. Um, yeah, we do have a lot of conspiracy clowns, Sir Hulk a lot in the stream. You get used to it. And Skull and Bones is a different entity. Skull and Bones is not the same as Freemasonry. No, it's not. Not Just Shoes. Skull and Bones is not a wing of Freemasonry. All right, Not Just Shoes. No, it's not entry level. I'm going to put you in a timeout because you're just full of nonsense. And at a certain point, it gets tiresome. All right, we're going to be ending this stream. We'll be back on 10 a.m. tomorrow. All right, guys, I'll talk to y'all soon. Thank you all for being here, and have an excellent night. I could actually get this. There we go. Talk to you guys later. Oops.